Green Party leader Elizabeth May joins me now for her perspective on today's federal budget. Ms. May, good of you to make the time. Thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me.
Let's just start out with obviously the centerpiece of today's budget in many respects, these new grocery rebates that can provide up to $467, depending on eligibility criteria, to families of up to 4 people here in Canada. I guess I'm just wondering, does that amount of compensation for the rising cost of living really meet the mark in your view, given, how much it is now for groceries? In many respects, that could only last in, again, many respects, 2 to 3 trips to the grocery store.
Even that, I mean, for a family of 4, that's a weekly shopping trip, and it's only one time only. So we think it's disappointing. We think it's good to do that, but there could have also been other measures to help low-income Canadians. One we had been pushing for would have been a CERB amnesty. So for people who received the COVID emergency response benefit, the CERB, particularly low-income Canadians, the government intends to continue to go after those people to ask them to pay back that money. That's really punitive and unnecessary. The budget says that for everybody who's having trouble paying back, they'll work with them to develop a repayment schedule. I mean, honestly, the amount of time and money it's going to cost the government of Canada to chase down low-income people is also expensive, and it would be much better just give a CERB amnesty for anyone below a certain income cutoff and focus on getting money from the large corporations that have been making excessive profits, particularly the oil and gas sector, which has seen its profits rise because of Putin attacking Ukraine. So the grocery rebate by itself, which is really readjusting GST rebate, is, who could be against it? But it is not even a drop in a very large bucket.
And I guess when you look at many respects, and what some of the other opposition parties in the House, specifically the Conservatives, have already come out and essentially said, is that, as with any budget economic update, really the general policy message of the Conservatives is they seem to like less government spending and therefore less government programs. In terms of what the Green Party was looking for, to what extent did you get that in this federal budget? And also, given the current economic state of Canada, given the rising cost of living, many people said it was time for the finance minister to perhaps cut back on investing in, major government programs any further. I guess, would you agree?
No, I mean, I think really at this point we obviously support the investment in dental, and we really lament that the government seems to have dropped the ball altogether on something that was in a lot of budget discussions a few years ago, and that's pharmacare. We want to reduce the costs of healthcare for Canadians and make the healthcare system function better, which I think Canadians are desperate to see. That the fastest rising cost of any element of our healthcare system is drug prices, and bringing in pharmacare would save the Canadian economy a tremendous amount and keep Canadians healthier. So we're very sad that pharmacare seems to have been dropped from the agenda. We used to see it, and sort of expecting it any minute. Pharmacare has been replaced, I guess, with dental care, but so many Canadians need to have their pharmaceutical prices covered. When a doctor writes a prescription, it's really important that every Canadian can afford to have that prescription filled, and that's not the case right now, and that has real costs to our healthcare system, because when people don't get the drugs their doctor wants them to have, when they are basically preventing a worse condition by ignoring those pharmaceutical products that a doctor wants you to have, many Canadians, the condition gets worse, and then by the time they get into hospital, it's a catastrophic condition instead of a chronic condition. So we know that we're the only country in the world with a universal healthcare system that doesn't include pharmacare. So we track these things very closely as Greens. We want to see pharmacare. That will be a cost up front, but it's really an accounting question. You're really over that pharmacare investment reduces costs over the whole Canadian economy. So we will keep pushing for it. We know that the people in the disability community have been promised the disability benefit, and we have, legislation going through the House. But again, this budget should have had a disability benefit payment because Canadians living with disabilities have a disproportionately high percentage of that population living in actual poverty. We need to lift everyone out of that poverty. We also thought there'd be more money to ensure that Canadians can afford a roof over their head for housing. That isn't in this budget. There is money for housing, but only, and it's not, I say only, it's important, it's critical, but the money for housing in this budget is exclusively for Indigenous Canadians, whether rural or urban or on reserve or in the North. But we still have an acute need for the housing accelerator program that wasn't even mentioned in this budget. So we have a lot of disappointments around what we call the people side of the budget, and then we also divided it up with the planet side of the budget. And there again, we're disappointed not to see a more aggressive set of measures to ensure that we meet our climate targets.